Hi, my name is Martin Twiss. I'm a Strawberry Fair committee member. I'm going to talk to you today about stewarding and what the role is. But before I dive too far into it, I want to start with a big thank you for getting this far. The fact that you're watching this video probably means you volunteered your time or are considering volunteering your time, and Strawberry Fair couldn't happen without people like you helping us make it happen. The entire event is entirely volunteer powered, and it's a really special and important part of Cambridge, so thank you very much. Lovely. So, the purpose today, we're going to talk around I'm going to give you an introduction to stewarding. It's not designed to be a fully comprehensive stewarding training course, but it's designed to give you a good overview so that you know what is expected and what to expect when you come and volunteer your time. Here's what we're going to run through today. I'm not going to read this out all to you right now, and I expect this video is likely to take around 45 minutes start to finish. It's going to be a lot of information, but please do feel free to watch it again as you need. And if you've got any questions, then my email address is there, so please do reach out to me or to via the website. There's a contact us form on the website, and we will get back to you. Great, so diving into it, for people that don't know Strawberry Fair, Strawberry Fair was founded in the early 70s. It is in the city centre of Cambridge on Midsummer Common, usually on the first Saturday in June, and it's a very, very large community event. We have a parade that goes through the city centre. We have between 10 and 15 music stages each year. About a third of our programming budget is actually spent on the kids park, so which is all for young people. All the entertainment is provided absolutely free of charge. We've got lots of community arts. We have a lot of traders, a variety of types of food and non-food traders, and much, much more. We typically attract around 35,000 attendees each year throughout the course of the day. Never that many on site at one point, but people being in the city centre and free to enter, people choose to tend to come down for a few hours or come and go, and that's great. We believe we're the largest free volunteer run event of our type, certainly in the UK. And a really important slide from here is that although we're volunteers and unpaid, it doesn't mean unprofessional. Many people involved with Strawberry Fair have been doing this a lot longer than even I have. And they've gone on to career, and lots of people who started at Strawberry Fair have gone on to very successful careers in events elsewhere around the country. A good example of this is the Purple Guide, which is the event organiser's handbook. The section on stewarding was actually written originally by members of Strawberry Fair. So we do know what we're doing, we just happen to enjoy doing it a lot as well. Part of that is because of the way we're structured. We've got a core committee of 60 people that start meeting in around September each year, and then meet up on varying cadences based on the types. We've got various subgroups. We've got programming subgroup, we have a production subgroup, we have and then towards the fair we have general meetings where everyone gets together, and it's a really nice community spirit we've got going, and around 1,000 volunteers actually help on the day itself. So first question is, what do stewards do? The most important thing that they do, far and away, is they keep everybody at the event, especially themselves, safe. I can't emphasise this one enough. We really, really, really want you to be safe and happy whilst your time with Strawberry Fair. Please, when you see an incident, try not to involve yourself in the incident and make the incident any bigger, but do look out for yourself first and foremost. That's extremely important. Next thing that stewards do is they are the eyes and ears of the event. So as an event organisers, we have a lot of resources on site to deal with incidents, but we don't know what those incidents are. So our stewards are out there, often with radios or working in pairs and near a radio. Their job is to see things and let us know about them and help us respond to them whatever we encounter, and all sorts of things may happen on the day. But we first need you to see it, report it, and then help us deal with it. We need you to be alert for potential dangers and report them to your area head or our HQ cabin, or control on the radio as we call them. You may need to deal with questions from the public, and you may need to give instructions to the public. How do stewards do it? Well, in order to be a good steward, there are certain things that you need to be wearing and need to be doing. The first thing is that all stewards will be wearing a high-vis jacket and sensible shoes. You may cover a lot of ground on the day. The high-vis jacket allows you to be seen, and it also allows you to attract attention should you need. So as we move into things like the first aid situations, if you ever need to call a first aider, they will be looking for high-vis jackets in the crowd, because that tells us where the person is. So make sure you'll be given one. You must have weather appropriate clothing. It might be hot, it might be rainy, it will get cold towards the end of the evening, certainly at the beginning of June. By the time it gets dark, it does get cold, so make sure if you're in shorts and t-shirt during the day that you have the opportunity to jump into jumpers, long trouser legs, or something that will be appropriate for when it gets colder. A water bottle will provide earplugs for people working in loud environments, sunscreen, hat. Your mobile phone would be extremely helpful. A notebook and pen is pretty much an essential. You may be given information that you need to keep track of. You may be given a description of a missing person, and you may need to recount that later. So have a notebook and pen to be able to take a note. And of course, we want you to have a smile. We want you to be happy while you're working. We'll see it, we'll pick up on it. And if you're not happy while you're working, please speak to us and let us know. Things to remember about stewarding: do not drink on duty, and please do not turn up for your shift either drunk or under the influence of any substances at all. You're there to help us ensure the safety and well-being of members of the public. So please make sure you're fit and able to work. You should always be working in pairs. In almost all situations you're likely to encounter, if you're working in pairs, one person can deal with an incident while one person can call for help. You've got two people there who are able to provide each other, to support each other, to witness events, to make sure that each other are okay. So if you don't have someone to work with, we will find someone for you to be working with on the day. That's totally fine. Please do come down, but make sure that while you're on shift, you are working in pairs or in line of sight from someone at all times. You must never leave your post or area, obviously, because if you do, then your post or area is unattended. And don't exceed your powers. So you're a steward while you're there. You're not security. The high-vis jacket does not bestow upon you sudden medical skills that you didn't have beforehand. Please just make sure that you're there to report incidents and help us deal with them. Security can be with you in minutes should you ever need. So even if you see something that you think you might be able to stop, please don't. Call for security, and they can be with you very, very quickly. We ask you to watch the crowd and not the entertainment. It's very easy to get suckered into watching the really high-class entertainment we have on all our various stages. However, you may then miss an incident happening within the crowd. So please make sure that you are, if you are in an entertainment space, you can listen, you can enjoy it, you can dance, but by all means, but please make sure you've got your eyes open and watching the crowd at all times. And things to be looking out for. The first line on this slide pretty much sums it up the best. What we want you to look out for is anything the event organisers should know about. For example, lost children. This is absolutely our top priority on site. Should you see lost children, again, this is why you should be working in pairs. We need you to initially have a quick look out for where people are, but then if the child is lost and you can't immediately find their parents, we have a lost children's tent usually located at the top of the common near the what we laughingly refer to as the armadillo toilets up near the main gate. It'll be there, or it'll be certainly on your map. So make sure you escort them to the lost kids tent, where we have sofas. We have trained professionals who will look after the children, and we've never had any left over at the end of the day yet. So please keep your eye out for lost children. Similarly, keep your eyes out for people in distress or in need of medical help. If people are in distress, we have a welfare tent where people can come and have a cup of coffee and have some chilled space, again with people who will who are trained in helping make sure that people are looked after if they are in times of distress. And anyone in need of medical help obviously will call in first aid resources or get them to our medical tent, which I'll talk about shortly. Keep your eye out for fires or fire hazards, more on that to come. Anything that looks unsafe, if you notice a fence is down, if you notice anything that could be that you wouldn't want members of the public having free access to, then please report it. Obviously fights or otherwise problematic attendees. If you see anyone who looks like trouble and looks like if you can report them to security and we can prevent incidents happening, then please, it's even better than preventing a fight and intervening in a fight. Underage drinking is very important to us. We'll talk about that shortly as to how to report underage drinking and what to do. And obviously drug dealing and drug usage is absolutely not allowed. In terms of the support available to you and us on site, so first of all, we have a medical tent where there will be ambulances. We have on foot patrols who are able to come and visit people in the crowd. We have within the tent there's multiple treatment bays where people can relax. It's a full-on medical tent, so please do make it, again, look for it on the maps. But if you see anyone and they can get there under their own power, if you could escort them to that tent, that saves us having to send people out, and moving ambulances across site can be difficult. Security, we have multiple response teams to deal with all confrontational situations, and again, we really do mean all confrontational situations. To be a security guard, you have to have an SIA badge. You're trained in the correct techniques to restrain and to handle these incidents. I'm certainly not going to train you that on the stewards training, and I'm not very good in that situation. So please do call for security as and when you see any incidents that may be confrontational. We have the event management team. So I've mentioned things like welfare and lost kids, but we also have a lot of experienced committee members and volunteers who can come in and support you in incidents. So once we know about it, people will come to you. They will be looking for you in your high-vis jacket. And we have a lot of other resources we've talked about, like we have our environmental teams if we've got a problem with litter, and so on and so forth. So we have just let us know about anything there. And obviously with the police, the police will have some level of presence on our site. They have one of our radios, but we also have the ability to call in resources directly very, very quickly should anything arise where it's beyond our control. So they are just a radio call away. In terms of how then do you communicate with these various different resources, we ask you that you report all incidents that you see to your area head or to control via the radio. If you don't have a radio, your area head will, and they will know how to report it. And we'll talk about radio usage shortly. Please do not dial 999 if you're dealing with an incident, even if it looks really serious. The quickest way to get resource to you is guaranteed to be via the radio. If you see members of the public calling 999, please ask them not to. And again, the reason for this is that we'll be quicker to respond, but also the nearest ambulances and police are on site, but ambulances that we're not expecting are really difficult to deal with, because they'll have a member of the public who doesn't know the site layout trying to give them directions to something on site that they're not able to meet them, and the ambulance won't get onto site very easily anyway. So please do what you can to stop people calling ambulances directly themselves. Wonderful. So incidents and the various different types of incidents we have. Obviously, just a small point. Stewards training, I have to talk about all the potential problems and challenges that may arise. Hopefully there won't be too many of any of these, but again, we do need to make sure that we plan for these. This training only touches the surface of many of our different plans that we have, but hopefully it's enough information that means you'll be able to understand your role should anything go wrong. Wonderful. So most incidents will be dealt with by our on-site security and medical teams. Sometimes we may need to isolate an incident that's happening to allow security and medical to be able to do their job and to keep members of the public at a safe distance. A good example of this is where you have a casualty in a heavy crowd. So there's someone on the floor being reported to you, you've called in medical come in, but they need to make sure they're able to do their job. What happens is the stewards will form a protective ring out around the incident at a safe distance facing outwards, allowing either security or the medical team to look inwards and focus on the incident that they're dealing with. Stewards may also be required in similar situations to help move ambulances through busy areas, so certainly down what we call Food Alley. It's the main hard-standing footpath that goes across Midsummer Common. If moving ambulances down there at the peak of the day is a real challenge, and people will stand there eating a burger, looking at an ambulance with flashing lights and sirens coming right towards them and not move. It's sensory overload. It's a common thing that happens at every event. So what we do is we put a steward on each corner of the ambulance, ideally someone else in front of that too, and maybe people on the sides at the busiest times of day, and you just run down in front of the ambulance, moving people out of the way, making sure people don't try and cut across, because now there's a bit of space in the crowd. And you follow the ambulance to their destination. You may see stewards waiting to guide you in, so look out for other stewards who will point you to the incident. In the unlikely event that there is a major incident throughout the course of the day, these are very rare, we have a major incident plan. I'm not going to go into the full major incident plan today, but your head stewards and your area heads will know it, so look to them for guidance on the day. The way major incidents are called is that a member of our emergency response team, the ERT, will decide on the best course of action. So an incident is reported. One of the emergency response team, who are the chair of the event, the vice chair, the head steward, and other senior or experienced committee members, they're usually in a slightly different coloured tabard, will come down and they will decide what the best course of action is based on their experience and their reading of the situation. Radio users will hear a message saying either condition amber or condition red. In both situations, radio traffic must stop until control says that we've gone back to code green and it's okay to resume normal business. There may be situations where we're in condition amber or red where something really urgent comes up, and in those situations, then please do use your judgment and say and let us know if there is something extremely serious happening. But unless it is the most severe, as in threat to life level incident, please keep radio traffic clear if someone has announced condition amber or condition red. We may end up calling the emergency services, so we may end up calling the police to come and deal with something, the fire brigade, or additional ambulances, more than we have on site, may be coming in to help us deal with situations. And as we step up through the severity, stages may be shut down to help us facilitate an evacuation of part or all of the site, with announcements being made over the PA systems. This is usually done fairly late on, and all the stages have a script that they know to read, and we have code words that they know that will inform them when to shut down and which direction we want members of the public to leave the site via. So in this situation, stewards will be needed to help implement the emergency procedures and help direct members of the public. So please, if you start seeing this happening, please look for your area head. Please make sure you're able to respond, make sure you're visible, and make sure that you are safe. In the most serious of incidents, and thankfully this hasn't happened before, the police will assume control of the site and we support them. Please don't leave. We will be needed to help the police deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with. And area heads at the end of a major incident they'll have to do a roll call to account for, make sure that everybody is safe and well. So please don't leave site without letting us know. And obviously when you get to site, we will be taking your contact details so we know who is on site at what time. That should be most of the major incidents. One of the things that I didn't cover under the what to look out for, but comes under major incident plans as well, is terrorist incidents. All event organisers of all sorts now go through terrorism training, and the common things are look out for suspicious packages. That have someone made an attempt to hide them? Are they trying to? Is it obvious? Does it look out of place? Is it obviously not something that you would expect to see in that environment? If you see something that is suspicious, please report it to us straight away, and again, obviously we will deal with that straight away. Radios. Not everybody will have a radio, but should you be given one, we're just going to talk you through how to use them very quickly. So on the left is a photo here of a radio looking from the top down. The very left hand side of this image is the aerial. In the middle you have the channel dial. Stewards will be on channel 1, so make sure that dial is pointing at the 1. And then you have the volume dial, and the volume also acts as the on-off switch. You turn it right down to 0 and it turns off. Should you be given a radio, or should you have a radio and it starts beeping with a noise that sounds like a doo-doo, doo-doo, Do not ignore it. That means your battery's about to die and you need to go and get a replacement from control, or your area head may have them in some situations. Please do this as soon as possible. A dead radio is no use to us, and we need the radios out, or we hire the number of radios, as many as we possibly can, and we need them out there and active just in case anything does happen or go wrong. So do not ignore a beeping radio. Please go and replace a battery. It's a 2-second job. They pop one off, pop a new one on, and everything's great. Radios are cheap to hire, but they are very expensive to lose. It's several £100 per radio, about £500-600 per radio that gets lost, which is the budget of one of our smaller stages. So please do not lose them, otherwise we will have less to spend on entertainment next year. When you're given a radio, you don't necessarily know that it's working. So there's several things to do. First, make sure you turn it up so it's loud enough that you would be able to hear it. And what we normally do is a radio check. So radios work on a push-to-talk mechanism. This isn't a radio, it's a mobile phone, but the way you do push-to-talk, you press the button on the side, you wait 2 seconds, and then you say radio check, and then you release. If you don't wait that couple of seconds after you press the button, the first part of your message will be cut off. It takes about a second or 2 seconds just for them to start transmitting. So press, wait, radio check, release. Someone else on a radio will hear it and say loud and clear. If you don't hear a response within a few seconds, try one more time. So go press, wait, radio check, release, and try one more time. If you don't hear anything back, reset the radio. You reset the radio by turning it off, waiting a few seconds just to make sure that there's no residual power, and turn it on. It'll take about 3 to 5 seconds, and then it'll go doo-doo-doo, and that tells you that it's turned on and it's connected. At that point, then try another radio check. Press, wait, radio check, release, and repeat. If that doesn't work, please take your radio to control and they will look at the handset for you. In terms of the actual so that's the how to use a radio, but now in terms of actual etiquette of using it, please make sure it's on and turned up loud enough for you to hear it at all times. We have a variety of headsets and earpieces available should you be working in loud environments or you don't want to have it screaming in at full volume all the day. Make sure you do a radio check and do not cross talk. So if there's a conversation already happening, please wait until that conversation ends before you jump in. If 2 people talk at the same time, you'll just hear a lot of digital radio noise and no one will hear anything. So if someone will say repeat and we end up in the same process. Wait for clear air, and at the end of your conversation you should say over. So when you finish it, you have your conversation, this is what I'm reporting, this is what we're going to do about it, okay, thank you, over. Good radio messages always follow the same, conversations always follow the same format. Who are you? Who are you calling for? So, this is Martin for control, release. That control will come back, there's control receiving, and then you say, this is Martin, you give your message with location information and ideally what you expect to happen as a result. So you'd say something like, thank you control, this is Martin, I'm over near the Hatter's Cafe, and you give your message, whatever it is that you need, and then they will come back to you with their information. At the end of the chat, you close it with over to make sure other people who are listening and waiting to speak know that they can speak. It's important to know that our radios are not private. Members of the public may be near a loud radio and able to hear the communication. Members of the press might be. The police have a radio. The council have a radio. Our medical team have a radio. So they're not private. We do try and keep, during the fair day, all conversation is fairly sensible most of the day, as sensible as we can. And we use code words for certain things to try and, again, to not cause alarm, but also should you be in a busy area and you wish to report something a bit more covertly. So the common code words that we use every year will be Mr. Sands for fire. This is very common. It's almost universal, but you report, I've got Mr. Sands over near the X stage or wherever you are. All our maps have grid references, so ideally give a grid reference if you can. And we now use a code word for underage drinking, which is bottle caps. So the way that one would work, you say, hi control, this is Martin, there's some bottle caps over near Hatter's Cafe. Again, can you please send someone to clear them up? We will know what you mean and somebody will come over and deal with this. Fires and fire prevention and fire training. Before I go too far into this, as with both the first point I made, safety of you and everyone else is the most paramount importance that there is. So please make sure. I'm going to talk about fires and fire prevention and how to use fire extinguishers, but this doesn't really count as proper training, and we would urge you to think very, very carefully before deciding to tackle a fire. I will say that several times, but I'm going to give you the information, so should you choose to do so, then hopefully you'll know how to do so. But I do wave the big red flag of please be very, very cautious, and if you're not sure, please don't feel the need to get somebody else who has more experience, or call us and we will make sure that somebody attends who knows what to do. Cool. So all fires require 3 core elements. What's on the right hand side is called the fire triangle. For a fire, you need to have oxygen, you need to have heat, and you need to have fuel. It's much better to prevent a fire than to tackle one. And because it's best to assume that oxygen will hopefully be available throughout the day, we tend to focus on heat and fuel. So please keep your eye out for any accumulation of possible fuels, such as rubbish or other combustible materials throughout the day, and any potential sources of heat that you see, particularly if either of those two are near each other. It takes a surprisingly small amount of heat, and particularly if it's a hot day, you can end up with bits of plastic refracting light that can cause fire. So please keep your eyes out for them and help us prevent fires before they start. In terms of fire handling, please consider the best course of action based upon what you see. You have several choices. You have the report it to us and we'll call in someone to deal with it. You might be able to, if it's a very small fire, just isolate it and let it burn out. If you think that's great, then please do so. Or you might choose to tackle it. Something that's very specific to our site is that Midsummer Common is it's large, it's open, and it's flat. So having a small fire burn out is usually reasonably okay. Obviously, you've got to keep an eye out for smoke. You don't want it spreading to anything, and you don't want people inhaling the fumes. But letting a fire burn out is a totally reasonable course of action, provided it's small enough to be managed and no members of the public can get near to it. All extinguishers target parts of the fire triangle. I'm going to talk through the different types of extinguishers in a few moments, but they all have a different purpose that will address one of those three things, and by preventing access to whichever of those it is, the fires will go out. When we do this training in public, we usually like to start with this question, which is, what colour is a dry powder extinguisher, and what extinguisher is this on the left hand side? I'll give you a moment. Full marks to anybody who got the right answers to these, which is all fire extinguishers are pretty much the same colour of red, other than the label on the front. But if you're grabbing it from behind or in a smoky room, it can be very difficult to know what you're grabbing. But one is very different to the other two, or to the others, and that is the CO2 one, which is the one I showed the picture of. So it's this one. It has a black solid plastic horn. Should you be reaching for a CO2 extinguisher, it's very, very, very important that you recognise this one in particular. Hopefully the extinguishers we hire will be, we hire them, we don't have our own, will have a thermally protected horn, but the CO2 that comes out is under -60 degrees. It's extremely cold, so it's cold enough to freeze your hand to it. So you will point the nozzle up, and then you release it and you use the handle and the main extinguisher. Do not hold anything that's black there. Both the pipe at the top and the horn itself will get extremely cold when you discharge the extinguisher. To use any extinguisher, you first pull it's the same process for all of them with the CO2 exception, but it's the same process initially. You pull the lock pin. So to pull the lock pin, you probably need to have the extinguisher on the floor, because lifting the handle a little bit may put pressure on the lock pin. It's a metal pin that goes across through the base of the handle of the trigger. Pull that out while it's on the floor, and you're able to, and then aim the nozzle at the source of the fire, squeeze it firmly, and sweep the nozzle from left to right, or if you choose from right to left. I don't mind which you choose. Obviously, if you're using the CO2 one, please do not hold that black horn. In terms of the types of extinguishers to use, we have a few different types on site. We have blankets, we have a range of different extinguishers. I'm going to talk you through them now. Blankets smother fire, obviously, and I worked with a safety officer at a number of events who says that they're basically just good for people with cold hands, but they're not very good for anything much else, particularly anything particularly large. They're good for very small fires if you don't wish to make a mess. Water extinguishers cool the fuel and deprive the fire of oxygen, and they're good for organic materials, paper, cardboard, things like that, but they're not for use on electrical, liquid or metal fires. Foam extinguishers are the ones that we put near generators. They replace the oxygen and form a barrier to prevent the fire from reigniting. They're good for organic materials and flammable liquids like petrol, alcohol, solvents, but there's a really big caveat here, which is we strongly urge people not to tackle generator fires, particularly once they get going. Move everybody back to a safe distance. There's fuel that can get a bit poppy, so please do not tackle unless you're extremely confident that you know what you're doing, and the nearest extinguisher to a generator should be a foam one. CO2, that's the one I showed you before. This is a gas, it's a gas that comes out, and it works by replacing the fire's oxygen, and it cools the fuel. They're great for electrical and flammable liquids as well, things like petrol, alcohol and solvents, but the gas comes out at quite a lot of pressure, so they can cause a bit of blowback of liquids if that's what you're dealing with, but it may be better than a fire. But again, this caveat: do not hold the black horn or the black pipe whilst using the extinguisher. Great on electrical. And then the final one is an ABC powder or a dry powder extinguisher. These will usually be located near electrical. They remove oxygen from the fuel and again create a barrier to prevent reignition, and they're good for pretty much all types of fire. They do create a bit of a mess though, so please don't use them in enclosed spaces, and just be prepared that if you do let one go, it will be, you will know about it. They produce an awful lot of dry powder. Moving on to first aid, as I said before, we have a first aid tent on site with multiple first aiders and medics who can respond on foot, via ambulance. Ideally, people will walk there themselves. Any first aid incident should be reported to control, so if you're going to walk somebody to control, it's often a good idea to radio ahead so people can meet you. If you've not had first aid training, please review the St John Ambulance website. It's fantastic. There's a lot of really good advice there. In particular, the information about the primary survey. You can search for St John Primary Survey. The primary survey is what you do when you approach somebody who is a casualty who at first glance from a distance appears non-responsive. And the way you conduct a primary survey, you can be remembered via the mnemonic Dr. ABC. So first things first, you look around you look around the incident and make sure it's safe before you approach. Make sure that you are aware of any dangers and that you're not putting yourself in danger. You then check for a response. Does the patient respond to voice or to touch? Touch is one that some people say squeeze someone's ear, some people say squeeze the fleshy bit of their hand. They both mean you have to be within reach. I tend to just sort of shake someone's leg or give them a bit of a kick. Again, make sure they don't look apparently injured before you do so. But if they don't respond to touch, you move on to checking their airways. So you make sure their airways are open by just tilting their head upwards. Well, they'll be lying flat, of course, you're upwards. This opens the throat and gives them the opportunity to breathe. You make sure that they are breathing. So once you've checked their airways and there's no obvious obstructions, you put your ear to their mouth and you look down their body towards their chest. You should hear or feel their breathing on your ear, even if it's very faint, and you should be able to see their chest rising if they are breathing. By this point, if you've got past response, you want to make sure that whoever you're working with is alert in control that you have a casualty that needs dealing with as well. So once you that means that you'll have medical help coming to help you as well, and then you finally move on to their circulation, which you do by look for a pulse. So just down from somebody's thumb, you just 2 inches down from the thumb, use your first two fingers to press gently there. You should feel a pulse. If you can't feel anything there, by all means try their necks, but you should be able to feel something from there. Give the results of the primary survey to the medical team as you radio them so they know what to expect, or when they arrive on scene, explain what you've done and then stand back and make sure that you are keeping everybody at a safe distance. CPR is another one of these slightly difficult ones, in that CPR is hopefully the people who are choosing to administer it will have had proper training in it. However, not all that training may apply now that we live in the times of COVID, and there's some slight differences to the advice as to how you do it. How do you do CPR during the times of COVID, in order to try and prevent any material being expelled from people's lungs that may be carrying viral loads. So there's a video that I've put a short link to there, and I'll try and put in the description to this video, which is just bit.ly/CPR-during-COVID, just bit.ly/CPR-during-COVID. So the first thing is you call for help, and you make sure that somebody is coming to help you. The CPR you definitely need to have somebody on the way to you by the time you're starting CPR. What you do differently now in these days is you place cloth gently over the patient's mouth to try and minimise virus transmission, and we don't do the mouth-to-mouth part. We just do chest compressions. So you'll place something over their mouth, and then you put your hands together in the one hand over the other, interlocked hands, place them in the centre of the chest, and push hard and fast to the tempo of Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, and you continue this until the ambulance arrives. Again, CPR should be a last resort, and only if someone has not been responding, and ideally you should know what you're doing prior to starting it. But if it's the best hope that somebody has, I'm sure they would be grateful that you tried. Thank you very much for staying with this for this long. It's really appreciated. As I said at the very beginning of the presentation, we really do appreciate that you've got this far. We really will love to see you down on the common, and we hope you really enjoy it. Cheers.